Hey guys, welcome back again. In this video we're going to go through all of the conversation that happened surrounding the Holy Thursday Massacre at the FWC Commission meeting today, May 11th. There's a lot of commentary I'm going to want to do on this, but I'm going to hold back for right now because this is going to be a really long video and I want to include everyone who spoke on this topic. So for any commentary we can talk down in the comments, but for right now I'm just going to show you the video clips in case you missed the meeting or you had to jump back and forth between the meeting and work or taking care of your kids or whatever. So here is the full highlight reel. I'm going to start us off with Daniel Parker going toe-to-toe with Commissioner Barreto, not because he was the first one to speak, but because that one I really want you to see. Please stick around and watch all of these. They're fantastic. Some of this is going to upset you because the level of accountability that we were looking for is not there. Let me know down below what you guys think of all of this, and I'll be happy to talk to you down in the comments. But for right now, let's get into the video.
Again, 2 minutes. At a minute 30, that yellow light's going to come on. I would ask that you start wrapping up because at 2 minutes, when it turns red, I am going to have to abruptly cut you off, and I don't like doing that. So,
hey, Ryan?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you for 1 second? There's one thing I wanted to, while everybody here from the public, Colonel Young, we had an incident that we were called in. We euthanized some snakes, and I think we owe it to the public to kind of, as much as we're allowed to talk about it. I don't know if there's any legal action going on, but let's clear the record on some of that so that the public has that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, so obviously there's been a lot of publicity and social media surrounding an incident that took place on April 6th here or up in Broward County. So I'm going to give you just some overall elements of what happened, and then we'll throw some facts in there. And I know there's been a lot of misinformation out on the internet and such. And we heard yesterday that some of our information wasn't available to the public. I just want to make clear that all our reports are and body camera video from the law enforcement investigators that were on site are available to the public at request. So there shouldn't be any information that we have that's not available to the public regarding this event. So on April 5th, FWC staff received a call of a reticulated python that was loose from a member of the public in Broward County. This snake was recovered in the backyard of a resident in Broward County, and it was seen on a Ring camera. Snake was 11 feet long, and again, it was a reticulated python. That's a fact. Our investigators were called and responded to that site and took possession of that python. The python did not have a pit tag, so it was not identifiable. So per protocol, the investigators did a search of the local areas, facilities that might be capable of housing that type of snake. So captive wildlife investigators reviewed facilities in the area that might have been the source of the escape or released prohibited snake. Mr. Coffey's facility was checked to determine if all snakes being held under constructive seizure at his location were accounted for. During this visit, Mr. Coffey and the FWC investigators discussed the future disposition of the seized snakes. So he advised that he was not missing a snake, just to be clear, and we did not determine that snake came from his facility, so it was undeterminable. But Mr. Coffey did request that FWC investigators euthanize these snakes rather than attempt to rehome the 32 prohibited snakes. That was upon his request, and that is a fact. That was in the reports, and that was something that has been disputed on social media. He also requested that the snakes be euthanized on site at his facility. Again, that's one of the facts of this case. That was his request upon our investigators. After Mr. Coffey formally relinquished ownership of the snakes, they were euthanized at his warehouse to accommodate him again at his request. While investigators were euthanizing the relinquished snakes, a legally permitted boa constrictor owned by another captive wildlife permittee was euthanized by mistake. That was an accident. That was on us. We made a mistake. The officers were conducted this euthanization. It took approximately 4 hours. It took a long time. And in the process of doing that, a lot of the snakes were very large. And on the basis from Mr. Coffey, some of these snakes had not been fed in a while and were starving and were pretty aggressive, and he actually advised us not to have anybody that was not familiar with him to be there to help with that process because it could be a danger to him. So, and that was based on his reports. So in the end, we are looking at our protocols and procedures, and we are going to ensure that something like this never happens again. I have put a directive to all of our investigators and staff that we will not be euthanizing any animals at this point unless it's in exigent circumstances in the field regarding something else. There were some also training gaps identified in the euthanization process. That is one of the reasons why we will no longer be doing this until we can firm up that gap and close that gap and ensure that our investigators and officers are properly trained to handle that or find some other facility or process to do that. So basically, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. And again, there's been a lot of misinformation. We own the fact that there were some mistakes made. The euthanization process, and again, the misidentification and the killing of the boa instead of that was not supposed to be. So identify that. So just wanted to get that out there. I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to have comments on that, and they're going to see what they've read on the internet or seen on social media, and our facts are what they are. The reports are available, the body camera is available, so if anybody wants a copy of any of that stuff, let us know, we'll gladly give it to you. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Lester.
I just want to make sure I get clarity on a couple of things. So when the officers went to this facility, they didn't go there intending that day to kill snakes.
No, sir.
It was only after they were there that they were requested to do that by the owner.
Per protocol, when there's a snake found in the wild, they will check with the local facilities to see if there has been an escape or release. So.
Yep. Okay. You got it. The facts are right.
Very good. I just want to make sure we're following all that correctly. Okay.
Commissioner?
Were these snakes pets?
No. So the 32, or I get my numbers correct. The reticulated pythons were not pets. They were under the permit of commerce. So they were commerce. They were not held under pet permits. So they were not pets.
Commissioner?
So sit down, please. We don't take. You can sign up or you can speak. Thank you.
There was a request, and we get clarification from our investigative section. He had done a request earlier in the year to switch his snakes from a commerce permit to a pet permit, but from what I understand, he failed to comply with the regulations that you can lawfully do that, and the permit was denied, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, Colonel, thank you. We're going to start taking public testimony. To the gentleman who just writes, we have a protocol here. You can sign up, you can speak, so when you come up, I just can't have people shouting out at us. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yesterday's meeting, we announced that we were going to give you a report to the public because we know the readers were all going to be here today, and there were some questions yesterday, and so that's why we had that report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I appreciated some of what Colonel Young said earlier about euthanasia of captive animals, but I just wanted to clarify. Commissioners, are you willing to commit right now that we are not going to euthanize captive animals? Did I hear correctly that that is going to be the policy of the agency going forward?
I don't remember saying that.
Because I thought I heard Colonel Young allude to that earlier.
So we're doing a temporary directive on no euthanasia except for exigent circumstances, as case by case is need be, until we can do further assessments on training and stuff. So
what would those circumstances be?
Side of the road issues with animals that get hit or something like that. So we're not talking about all captive. We're talking about all wildlife. So there's cases where officers have to do that, have no choice for law enforcement purposes, obviously. But in the case of euthanasia, for reference to April 6th, we have put a directive to stop doing any euthanasia on conditions like that until further training can be assessed and gaps can be closed.
Thank you so much, Colonel Young. And we really do look forward to working with you in the future. We do not want to have an adversarial relationship with FWC, but we have a lot of people that are very upset, and all of the issues have not been fixed. So going forward, we need to have some serious conversations. The line from what happened on April 6th can be traced directly from what happened in February of 2021 with the prohibited species regulations. And those were done without proper due process and stakeholder input. People were led to believe that they would not lose their animals, that if you had these animals, and multiple commissioners, you guys said that nobody's gonna lose your pets. And Melissa Tucker said that people are not gonna lose their pets. And it was even pointed out that that was misinformation, that anybody believed that they would lose their pets. And earlier it was mentioned that the pythons weren't pets. Well, in the body cam footage that we do have, the officer said, "We're killing this guy's pets." And with all due respect, I don't think any of you get to determine what is our pet. These are animals.
You know, listen, this whole notion that there's some massacre happened, okay? You guys are taking it a little too far.
No, I don't think so at all.
Hold on,
what would you call somebody coming in and killing a bunch of animals without reason?
It was, first of all, first and foremost, I guarantee you that this agency doesn't euthanize. When's the last time we euthanized something? Give me, this is like, I don't want this notion that this is happening every day in Florida. It's not, okay? It's an isolated incident. It's an isolated incident, and you're pounding this to make it look like we do this. It's like our daily routine. It's not our daily routine, okay? So let's get off that notion, please.
Were there iguanas euthanized the week before that happened?
I have no clue. Okay.
The answer, as far as we can tell, is yes. So, and there was a report published in the FWC Weekly Law Enforcement Report about iguanas being confiscated. So, we're very concerned about our animals, and it has been proven that sometimes you guys do kill animals. And the fact that this happened in the way that it did, it confirmed a lot of people's fears.
Daniel, let me ask you something. Didn't you hear the testimony earlier from the colonel that I don't know if he was the actual owner, but the person in possession of these snakes asked us to euthanize them? Did you hear that earlier or not? Okay, so hold on. So you're making it sound like we walked in, kicked the door down, went and killed all these snakes. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Okay? All right, so listen, why don't you wrap up your thoughts? And I don't need all the cat calling in the audience. If that's the case, we're just going to call the meeting off. Okay? We're having a good discussion here. Let's get beyond this. Put out what you want to put out. You asked for a report yesterday. I told you it was already on the agenda for today. We gave it. Let's move on.
Yes, I should point out that the material that my organization has put out has not differed largely from what FWC said happened. We have very serious concerns with what we all know and agree happened on that day. But as far as what happened to Chris Coffey, you guys destroyed his life over the course of 14 months. He was a successful breeder. He wanted to be grandfathered in. He considered these his pets. He was charged. The case was dismissed weeks before this happened, but you constructively seized his animals, and then you brought up earlier about the animals being fed. Did you offer to feed the animals? Those were your animals at that point. Did you pay for their care or upkeep? He was left with these animals with nothing to do with them, except you have to keep them. And if you don't, we're gonna arrest you. So he's been operating under that assumption that he was going to be arrested. And he didn't just call in FWC to kill his animals. Your time's up. That's not how that
Your time's up, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Liz. Is Liz out there? Seeing no Liz. Mark. Good afternoon.
Commissioners, it's afternoon this time, so good afternoon. Phil Goss, President of the United States Association of Reptile Keepers, better known as USARC. We are a 501c6 national nonprofit advocating for responsible pet owners and businesses, especially in the world of herpetoculture, which is the keeping and breeding of reptiles and amphibians as pets. I think everyone can admit there were some mistakes made on April 6th, and I hope we can learn from those and move forward on this. So one of the mistakes I would like to point out is in 2021, commissioners were presented with data from staff that only about a dozen people in the state were working with reticulated pythons and/or Burmese pythons. None of those dozen people were grandfathered and allowed to continue business, even though in the example of Chris Coffey, he had had permits and had been licensed by FWC for over a decade. So if we had just allowed him to be grandfathered and continue doing business as long as he was in compliance, April 6th never would have happened. And obviously I'm talking about reptiles, but as land developers, you see the same thing. If codes are updated, you usually don't have to go back and retrofit all your old buildings. So if a city requires you to build a building and cover it in stone or brick, you don't have to go tear all the stucco off and refinish your building. So I don't know why that grandfather clause was not applied for this. Again, it was only a dozen people, and April 6th never would have happened. So my point being, if species are listed as conditional or prohibited in the future, we need to look at a true grandfather clause for those businesses, and we won't have a repeat of April 6th. And we talk about this so much, almost a third of Americans own a pet reptile, fish, bird, or mammal. So in Florida alone, you have over 6.5 million people who have these types of pets. So it's a lot of people who are affected by these things. I know you're just recently seeing some numbers. You were surprised by how many species were in trade. So again, that's another number that you need to think about. Over 6.5 million pet owners in Florida alone could be affected by overreaching and draconian rules. So please consider that moving forward. I'm already out of time. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Elizabeth Wisniewski with U.S. Art Florida. As I say all the time, we are willing to work with industry, with staff and industry together. That is our ultimate goal. And I would like to give an example of that and how it affects the April 6th massacre. Back in the day, I am a permit holder, I have a business, and I am a breeder. I was a CSP permit holder, so I had Burmese anacondas. Actually, my anaconda came to me from a seizure from somebody that was not permitted. She is still in my care today. Another animal that was seized was a Nile monitor. At the time, I did not want to keep that one, but I did place it in a home out of state, and it's living very healthy today and a good life. So the massacre really didn't need to happen if staff would have been working more with industry. It kind of really broke my heart that we spent 2 days at TAG with everybody, and perhaps they could have reached out to us, and we talked about the amnesty a lot then too. They could have reached out to industry and said, we have these animals in the state that are not supposed to be here. They're prohibited. There's an issue of getting them out. Reach out to the industry. Let us work with you. Instead of just euthanizing these animals, there are people that really want them. There's zoos, there's places. I could have made calls and had them out of the state by morning. It would have been very easy. But we just need to be given that opportunity instead of just euthanizing these animals and destroying people's lives. Thank you.
All right, Joseph.
Commissioners, after more than 2 decades of very successful FWC and industry cooperation, the last 4 years have seen many direct threats to our animal industries. Promises of no more prohibited species. We're not trying to close anyone's business. We're not trying to make a white list. If it's already here, you've got nothing to worry about. You know, without being a smartass and with all due respect, for the last 4 years, I keep hearing this one phrase in my head over and over again. It was whenever Groucho Marx was caught red-handed, he would always say, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Now, so let us come euthanize your snakes or we will arrest you is not the same as please come euthanize my snakes. Transparency and the truth must be the starting point. I appreciate the Colonel's candor and on the killing of the wrong snake earlier this morning. What I don't appreciate is not hearing from the humane interests. I'm a member of the Humane Society of the United States, and yet I did not hear one word from the humane interests about the killing of the snakes. You don't represent me, and I'm one of your constituents, or any of the constituents as far as I'm concerned. I'm very disappointed to hear that. I guess they just rubber stamp what they like and not what they don't like, and bears, and that's it. FWC is making Florida an anti-animal, anti-pet state. No one wants them to move to Florida, to any anti-pet state. No one wants to retire and move to an anti-pet state. No one. We can all see the coming headlines. Florida hates pets. Florida kills small business. Come to Florida, but leave your pets behind. Over half of all Americans have pets, and they need to be able to come to Florida and have them too. This morning you heard a biologist point out how so many of Florida's ornamental plants are not native, and yet our state benefits greatly from them. A few have become invasive, but no one is closing or criminalizing their industry.
Please wrap it up, Marcus.
Thank you. Oh boy. A couple summers ago, I held FWC to task for manipulating science and basically brought the truth. And the only response from leadership was to limit the time spoken.
Marcus, we got to move on.
Okay,
I'm sorry. We got to move on.
Anyway, I would ask Commissioner Barreto if you would reconsider that and really hearing from the stakeholders what all this is about. And if people are willing to come here and drive across the state and give up their livelihoods, their time, listen to them for 3 or 6 minutes if somebody's willing to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. I'm born and raised here in Florida. I'm about 20 years old. And my entire life, I have seen nothing but Florida being destroyed. Whether it comes from conflict of interest, homes being built up out of nowhere, pesticides sprayed everywhere, whether it be lakes, lawns, whatever. And it always seems to be, oh, we're going after the bad guy. We're going after something else. In this case, with the reptiles, we're going after the bad guys. It's always the bad guys. But the people who end up getting punished always seem to be the people that, for the most part, everyone in this community sees as the good guys. The people that try to actually do good are the ones who are punished. And it continuously turns into this never-ending blame game from people who have no idea what they're even looking at. I mean, many of us have seen this this body cam video. You go up to a tank that has a boa in it, points and says that's a boa, and less than 5 minutes later the boa is dead. I see that, and I don't know if it's incompetence, but somebody who should be in charge of doing that should know what they're even looking at. I'm not going to go and drive down the street and point at a cottonmouth on the side of the road and tell people that it's a water snake and then expect them to be fine if they get bit. If anyone who looks and knows what they're talking about and what they're doing would know that it's absolutely ridiculous what happened. So, thank you for your time.
Hello again. Executive Director Young's earlier statements correctly and clearly stated that Chris Coffey's animals were seized by FWC. A seizure that happened 14 months prior to the snakes being euthanized. Chris was made to keep FWC seized snakes for 14 months in a facility that doesn't, to what I've seen, even comply with current prohibited species rules, at great personal cost to himself and under
extreme emotional duress. I'll take Executive Director Young's word that Chris Coffey actually asked for his snakes to be euthanized, even though no proof of this exchange has been made available to the public to date. But that's irrelevant. In no way was FWC obligated to comply, nor should they have, with any such request. They weren't even his snakes for over a year at that point. I'm not some weak-kneed pansy, but I cried watching this horrific event. I applaud Executive Director Young and staff for immediately changing the way situations like this are handled so that no other pets will be euthanized like this. Additionally, the animal community will happily help FWC find homes for surrendered and/or seized animals, but the trust between FWC and animal keepers needs to be restored before keepers will be willing to stick their necks out to help. This new policy of non-euthanasia is a great start, but extreme prohibited species rules must be addressed in order for reasonable transport or movement of these animals out of state to happen safely, legally, and efficiently. Finally, Chris Coffey initiated contact with his FWC investigator to let them know that he was unable to relocate these snakes inside the deadline given by FWC.
Now he's lost his businesses, his pets, he's a criminal, and for his honesty and clarity, he was rewarded with, I believe, 72 violations. Conversely, had he called FWC's amnesty hotline, none of this unfortunate situation would have happened. Moving forward, I believe it would be more prudent for a more reasonable approach to be taken in situations such like this, where good people are trying to do the right thing and not intentionally trying to circumvent the law. Cooler heads need to prevail. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners and everyone. I don't know if anyone else here is an animal health professional, but I am. I'm a veterinarian. And what happened on April 6th, it's nowhere near humane. For many reasons, but the colonel already addressed that you're going to be looking into it, and thankfully there's not going to be any more of those euthanasias or killings. Those animals were all captive animals. They may have been prohibited species, I get it, but they're captive. So contrary to what some may think, they were pets, and they should have never been killed that way. They should have been, as the AVMA states, they should have been offered some of the options for captive/pets, and that was not what happened. I believe that although the intentions may be good with all these prohibited species, everyone may be overlooking that animal cruelty is going to become a secondary problem. A lot of these people out there, sadly, even your own officers, cannot differentiate animals. So how do we know that when we tell someone, yeah, go ahead, it's okay to kill an iguana, they're not also killing a fence lizard, box turtles, anything else? I believe FWC should put out a statement that you guys do not condone animal cruelty, and I get it, that should be understood, but I don't know. I certainly have to say that from the videos, it didn't look like you guys were doing anything to promote animal welfare, though the officers seem to be enjoying what they were doing, and that's sad to see. So lastly, I believe Commissioner Lessler said that FWC does have a monumental task with the proposed rule with the, I know that was a topic, but I would say, you know, you have industry, you have us. If you utilize us, we will help. We all want the same thing. But one thing that I would say is we don't want to feel heard. We want to be listened to. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Jerry Bussell. I'm a reptile pet owner, hobbyist, and stakeholder. Excuse me. Chairman Barreto, in February of 2021, during a commissioner's meeting with reptile industry stakeholders, you said, and I quote, "Our natural environment is more important than your pets or livelihood. We must protect our natural resources at all costs." Then just 24 hours later, you lobbied for your land development company to fill in a lagoon off Singer Island where manatees, sea turtles, and at least 3 species of sawfish are known to habitate, so that your land development company could also build hundreds of condos and houses on top of said lagoon. As one of my fellow colleagues said during that same meeting, we can't trust you. You, sir, are a liar and have made it abundantly clear that our natural resources, environment, and our natural environment, our natural resources are not more important than your livelihood. After the events of Thursday, April 6, 2023, now known as the Holy Thursday Massacre, the day that the very thing you said wouldn't happen actually happened. You once again proved yourself to be a liar, and we can't trust you. If you and your fellow commissioners had a single shred of integrity, each of you would step down from your appointed positions as FWC commissioners immediately. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Teodorsky, and I'm just representing myself. I want to start with a quote from February 25th, 2001. On that day, Commissioner Barreto said the following, and I quote, "I want to make sure the public is aware that if you currently own one of these reptiles, you are allowed to keep it till it. So no one is telling you you have to get rid of your pet or euthanize it. No one from the state is going to take it away from you. As a member of that public, Commissioner Barreto, I heard what you had to say. I took to heart what you said, Commissioner. I have no financial interest in reptiles. I have no economic motivation to be here. I'm here missing work today and yesterday, having driven down from Tampa because I believed you, Commissioner. I was sure my pet snakes, Mr. Krinkle and Kluski, were safe. But you and your officers violated that trust 34 times on April 6th. Now I know you don't want to consider the euthanized animals as pets, But I would argue, by definition, according to 18 U.S. Code 2266, since FWC took these animals out of commerce, they were by definition pets. Even if I accept that the request was made by Mr. Coffey, I have a saying with my staff at work. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. These officers were ill-prepared and ill-trained at best. Earlier today, we decided to delay the decision to consider the so-called whitelist, and like the others have said, I appreciate you spending more time on this decision. I reviewed the proposed species questionnaire that was shared in preparation for this meeting, and can only assume, based upon the massive impact the domestic cat has on the environment, that they will be the first species eliminated. The domestic cat can be directly linked to the extinction of over 50 bird species. Cats alone kill an estimated 2.4 million birds in the U.S. Can I be assured, if this proposal moves forward as its stated intent is to protect our natural species, that this threat will be analyzed and addressed immediately? Thank you. When can I apply for my permit to hunt Mittens the kittens in the Everglade? Because I really want to do that. And it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But when it's a snake, it's not so ridiculous. I don't understand.
Carry on. Brothers and sisters, new executive director, lots of luck. You're going to need the wisdom of Solomon for this one. My name is Ryan Gitman. I'm the former owner of a company called Underground Reptiles. Been living in Florida for the past 35 years. I pastor a small family church. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I am a grandfather now. 5 years ago, I employed 250 people, 40 to 50 consistently, all families that we took care of. I was responsible for moving 50 to 75,000 iguanas out of the Florida wilds a year. I paid over $1 million in taxes a year to Florida. I had an amazing relationship with FWC. We trained new recruits on our property, helping them learn how to pick up big snakes, venomous snakes, things of that nature. I also was a breeder of hundreds and hundreds of albino and morph tegus every year. I was told that Florida was not wanting to get rid of the reptile industry every time I went to a meeting. No, we welcome you. We want you to stay here and do business. 5 years later, I'm in and out of court for the last year for selling an iguana out of the state of Florida, even though FWC knew I had a permit to do so. I am paying no taxes now because I had to sell my business. I employ no employees. I have my licenses regularly denied, and when I ask for a reason why, I'm told because I have all of these violations. And I go, wait, I don't have violations. The 2 citations I've had in the last 20 years, I beat in court. The other ones are warnings. That's just a warning. A warning is supposed to be like, fix it. It's usually fixed before I leave. I had to sell $1 million worth of tegu stock for $10,000, or I wasn't going to go through what Coffee went through. Forget that noise. I'd have flipped my crap. And now me and my family are praying about whether we should move out of the state. I've been here a dozen times asking you guys to help me. Please grandfather me in. I offered FWC my help with the tegus. Been breeding tegus for 30 years. I said, I can help you. I can help you get rid of them. I beg you, give me a license to get rid of iguanas. No, we don't want to sell them. I don't know what else to say except I wish you all the best. I'm not coming back. I can't do this anymore. I'm 57 years old. I'm not going back and forth to court. I pastor a church. What do I tell my congregation? Oh, I got arrested for selling iguanas? Anyway, if I can just have one more second.
I need you to wrap up.
I'm wrapping right now. Lex and John are the best of the best. And although I am with my brothers, please take responsibility. Tell the public it's not on them. Lex and John are the finest officers in the field. We all know that. Those guys have been fair and decent and kind with us, and I feel terrible that they got to take the heat for what happened to these pythons. Terrible about that. Please, take responsibility.
To all of you, and thank you for allowing us to speak. I think most of you probably know who I am, or at least heard of me. My name is Tom Crutchfield. I'm 75 years old this next birthday, and I literally have had Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 wildlife, and venomous snakes, as well as worked at places with mammals, birds, all of the stuff that are regulated. Before Florida had a permit system in place, there were no permits. there were, I'll just read you what I have here, and then I'll make some adjustments. I'm a real Florida man. I'm 6 generations, born in the late 1940s, when the term Florida cracker wasn't a racist comment, but was what we call Florida cowboys, black or white, as they were a special breed of man that used 12-foot bull whips to herd the cattle. I grew up with these kinds of men. My Uncle Will Austin Brooks could knock a fly off a bull's horn with his bullwhip effortlessly, it seemed to my young self. The very backbone of Florida tourism since the time I was a child has been built on animal-based businesses to attract tourists. Basically, roadside attractions displaying all types of native wildlife or exotic wildlife were numerous along any major highway. I personally saw squirrel monkeys for sale at $9.95, and even live manatees for sale at a zoo that was originally in Punta Gorda near the Peace River. They just caught another one, I guess, when they sold one. I'm not sure, but they weren't regulated. Florida history shows animal attractions and their businesses have always formed the backbone of Florida tourism, and it still does even today. In the 1960s and 70s, every big roadside gas station and gift shop had at least an alligator pit for the tourist to lure them into stopping and spending money and visiting our state and taking pictures.
Tom, if you can wrap up, please.
Okay. The bottom line is when we did this, the very first inspector you had was Barry Cook. Barry Cook, if he's still alive, was a close friend of mine all my life. And we worked together in those days. We helped each other. And Barry knew and understood what he knew he did not understand. And where he got his help from and understanding was from us. He reached out to us. And I can tell you that we're waiting to do that.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the brief time that I had.
I speak here to express my deep concerns regarding the Chairman, Ronnie Barreto, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Under his tenure, the FWC has demonstrated a concerning level of incompetence and authoritarian approach that cannot be overlooked. One distressing aspect in the FWC's practice of making up rules and enforcing them through their own law enforcement officers, this lack of transparency and accountability raises doubts about the fairness and objectivity of their actions, undermining the principles of justice and due process that this country was founded on. Furthermore, Chairman Barreto's direct deception of reptile keepers is deeply concerning. His false assurance that we could keep animals for the entirety of their lives shattered the trust we placed in the FWC when the massacre happened. The subsequent actions of the FWC, such as entering our facilities, killing our animals in front of us, and leaving bloodstains on the floor, are not only traumatizing but also demonstrate a complete disregard for our emotional bond we share with our pets. It is simply unfathomable that law enforcement officers would carry out such horrendous actions. Numerous studies have highlighted that both dogs and cats pose a significant threat to our ecosystem. Would they be willing to subject dogs or cats to such treatment? The stark contrast in their approach warrants serious reflection. This also raises questions about the morality and the integrity of this commission. I urge you guys to thoroughly investigate the leadership and conduct of the FWC Commission. It is crucial to ensure that their decisions and actions align with ethical standards, transparency, respect for both animals and the affected community. As a stakeholder, I request a prompt response addressing these concerns and outlining the measures being taken to rectify the prevailing issues within the FWC.
Thank you.
I also want to just reiterate, we had a lot of discussions with the breeders, the captive wildlife, the breeders, and so on and so forth. And I could, you can see their passion that comes through it. I think it's a new day, and I want to again emphasize it is a new day. We have a new executive director. We've already spoken. He knows that this issue is an issue that we need to get our hands totally around. We're not here to put anybody out of business. I think it has been very clear our mission. Now, I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say that we maybe in reflecting on when we euthanized the snakes, maybe we could have done it differently. That's subject to debate. The optics doesn't look good, okay? We get it. You can see the passion coming from those folks who talked. I'm an animal lover. I'm a dog owner. You know, I've had my share of reptiles and turtles and snakes and gerbils. I mean, I have kids. Come on. So we hear you.
Well, that's it. What do you guys think? I really would have liked to have seen more contrition on the part of the commission myself. I really would have liked to have seen people with a little more than 2 minutes to talk. But that is what we got. So what do you guys think? Comment down below, let me know. I'll be down there in the comments with you. And to not risk making this video any longer than it already is, I will see you on the next one. Bye.